Um, Welcome, everyone, and happy Wednesday. We have Lynn with us from NTS. She'll be doing our webinar this morning and answering questions for you folks. NTS is a great company out of Australia, and I'll let Catherine explain to you a little bit about their background, but it's basically a small business set up by two families. And Catherine is the production manager and head of recruitment and training at NTS, and she has a rather unique story as to how she came up through the ranks as an MT-HDS. And her story is very fascinating, and I'll let her go into that in more detail. And thank you again, Catherine, as always, for coming and being on with us. And would you refresh my memory what time it is there in Australia?
Good morning, everybody. It is 3 o'clock in the morning.
What dedication. Oh,
it's a pleasure to be here.
Go ahead. And any questions you folks have as we go along, just type them in the chat box for me, and we'll get to them as soon as we can. Okay?
Lovely. So my story starts when I joined NTS. I had a little toddler, about 18 months old, and didn't want to lose my skills in the medical industry. Before I had Nicholas, I was working at home for 8 gastroenterologists. I was basically at their beck and call and did their op reports as well as all their consult letters. And then I went on maternity leave, and then realised I couldn't go back with a baby. It was just too stressful. He was crying, I was trying to do my work, so I just resigned. And then once he was about 18 months old, I found NTS online and joined them as a typist. As my background was a specific specialty, I wasn't actually put with gastroenterology. I ended up with obstetrics and gynecology, gen med, general surgery, so I had to learn some other specialties, which I thought was fantastic at the time, because where else would you get such exposure to all the different medical specialties? So I thought, if it didn't work out, at least I've had all this exposure, which was great for my knowledge, for my resume, all that sort of thing. So got into a team. I finished my training, hopped into a team that they chose for me, and off I went. I decided very early on that I wanted to be paid fortnightly instead of monthly, so I made sure that I was able to invoice for at least $500 per fortnight. So I worked out quickly how many hours and how many lines I would need to do to get that sort of income straight away. So that's what I did. And my hours at the beginning, I was working about 10 hours a day, with interruptions with a small child, but working till 9 o'clock at night, stopping for dinner, back to working to get those lines, every day. And that's basically how I built up my exposure to the clients in my pool, to be able to get then direct return to client for every single one of those clients. And from there, I was able then to do some part-time QA, so checking my other team members' work and providing feedback. And then was offered a group leader position. So my current group leader was leaving, so I then went into that role myself. So I stayed with specialties I was used to, but then I was overseeing a team of about 50 people. And from there, I was offered a training position. So I moved into training, in charge of recruitment. All the applications that came in went to me. I was in charge of the trainers. I had my catch-up calls with them every week about how they were going with their trainees, and setting up the new typists then on their specific pools in teams. And then 2 years ago now, I became production manager. So now I'm in charge of production and all the teams. We have 6 teams, so I'm in charge of about 300 people. And it's my job to get those files delivered to the clients on time. So that's where I am at this stage. So I've literally gone from the very, very bottom to probably, well, I think one more thing would be operations manager, and I don't think the lady there is intending to resign anytime soon. So, but I'm happy with my production role. It's wonderful to be able to make change, to be able to institute new guidelines and methods to make our business even better, and those small changes I can make have far-reaching impact, you know, with all the typists. So it's been able to be very helpful with my people skills, you know, working with different personalities. It's just grown, you know, it's grown me as a person as well. So I thank NTS for that.
Well, I think that's very inspirational.
Thank you.
And the thing is, you do definitely stress in your company that you do like that relationship with folks, that you don't want to see a huge turnover, and I really appreciate that.
Yes, we love to work with our typists to make them as successful as we can, to give them whatever encouragement and support that we can in terms of their day-to-day work. We welcome them to come with us with any problems or issues they may be having, either with their pool, a difficult dictator, anything like that. We always make time. So it's a very friendly working environment where you feel supported from day one. So we'd all love for you, when you finish your course, to come on board with us, and we'll look after you.
I think that's great, and it's really important, you know, starting out, because it's such a daunting profession. I think that it requires a very high skill set level. A lot of people become very discouraged at first because it is isolative in some ways. So I think, yeah, and you keep hearing over and over, you need to work independently. Well, some of us do require feedback. Some of us, you know, do better with a little hands-on, a little bit of encouragement. So I think that that's one thing that I really, really like about your company, that you do have this feeling that people are part of a family. And CanScribe does operate the same way. We do try to do our best. I'm not saying that we're all perfect on all days, but we do try to, you know, communicate to the student that we understand how hard this course is, and the job in general. You have to be extremely intelligent to even do this, and I'm sticking with that. So I've been with this, you know, career for over 40 years, and it has not let me down once. It's always been rewarding, and but it's not always been easy. So I really appreciate, you know, companies out there that understand this. And all the contact information is on this slide. So if you folks need to, you know, contact Catherine or Sue. Isn't Sue also?
Yes, Sue looks after our applications now. She's our recruitment officer, so she's very happy to answer any queries that you might have as well. We do get emails from time to time from prospective applicants that want to have a few questions asked before they put in their application, and we're more than welcome to answer anything like that one-to-one.
That's super. And now, whoever's on the call, please feel free to start, you know, typing any questions in that you would like to ask Catherine. We're going to go through some, well, it's actually something that Catherine kind of developed, and I'll let her speak to that process about proof checking your work.
Yes, thank you, Audrey. Proof checking, you might hear proofreading a lot, but there is a difference between proof checking and proofreading. And we've come across this in our company a lot, where, you know, the brain is trained to, you know, you read a sentence, you know, you're proof checking quickly, and you can miss those spelling mistakes. I've had recent conversations with people where I have encouraged them to proof check their work carefully, as we were seeing many typos and missed words in their work, and that's preventing them from achieving direct return you know, for frustrating clients. I'm reassured again and again that they are proofreading their work, and I have no doubt that they are, but it's being ineffective. So I started to think about how I can clarify and educate this on the difference between proofreading and proof checking, and why one of these methods is good for reading a book at bedtime, while the other is necessary for your work. So we must remember that one little letter or one little word can have an enormous impact on someone's life. Here are some examples, as you see on the screen, that I've seen recently. I show these not to embarrass anyone, because we all have done it, but to highlight the importance of what I mean. So if we have a look at those, I won't read them out. I'm sure everyone can see them on the screen. Now, I will admit that a couple of these made me laugh, and I'm sure, you know, you're having a giggle yourself. That is until I sit back and think about the patient receiving their history, or the dictator reading over our work and what they must think, and then it becomes a little bit more serious. So proof checking is retraining your brain to slow down and look at every single word, one at a time, as you read and understand the context of what your report means. Over time, you can speed this process up. Now, proofreading is allowing your eyes to flow over a full word or sentence. Here is why this method does not work when trying to produce a quality file. And I must admit that until I recognise the difference, I think we're all with proofreading, allowing your eyes to just follow over that word or a sentence, viewing a quick glance. Yes, it all looks great, move it on. So as you can see, that next little phrase, that all the words are jumbled, all the letters are jumbled up in the word. You can read the words because the human mind reads words as a whole and not letter by letter. So that couple of sentences, you know, according to a research at Cambridge University, it doesn't matter in what order the letters in a word are. The only important thing is that the first and last letters be at the right place. The rest can be a total miss, and you can still read it without a problem. This is because the human mind does not read every letter by itself, but the word as a whole. So you can see how you can still read that, even though the letters are all, it's just a horrible jumble of letters. So that gives you a good indication of how your brain will read words as a whole and not individually. Now, proof checking is a skill, just like touch typing or researching quickly and effectively, and are all skills necessary to make you a successful MT, QA, mentor, group leader, or whatever it is that your career may lead you. So that's proof checking skills. And that's what we teach in training. So it's, you know, if you come to us for your practicum, for instance, this is what we would be encouraging you do, so that when you take your final exams, you already are in that proof checking mode rather than proofreading mode. And you know, it's a skill that we need to practice. And we also can say, okay, you proofread your letter, but then go back and proof check it. Look at each word and see if everything's okay. And as I said before, in my slide, it will get faster and faster, and you won't feel that you're wasting time that you could be spending doing another letter and earning more money. But quality files are very important, and quality files, not quantity, will get you further in your career as an MT.
I totally agree with that. I think I put in this slide because I think that one of the misconceptions, especially in editing, but even in straight typing, is that if we see a word on a page, our brain sees it as a word, even if it's not jumbled like, you know, that paragraph that we could read because the first and last letters were right. But if when we see that word on the page, it registers, oh, that's a normal word, that's fine. But as we can see by these, you know, mix-ups here under top tips, that without stopping and thinking about those words, they could easily be left in as the wrong words because our brain saw them as normal words. So I think think that's the rub in transcription. We have to learn. And as you were saying, Catherine, it does become easier and easier because I find when I'm typing or editing, I go left to right, kind of like when you're reading a book. But I also read above where I am just to see that that sentence made sense. And it just is a skill that you pick up after doing this so many times that you can almost pick out that, oh my gosh, I put the wrong word there. And you can go back and fix it right away. So
exactly.
Yeah. And I don't know if we have any questions. Let me see. Yeah, everybody's commenting on the...
They're picking up the spelling, yeah.
That's good. That's great. I know. That was the whole point, because we have so many sound-alike words anyway.
We do. The English language is very complex.
Exactly.
And it just brings us back to you need to understand what you're typing. Otherwise, it's not going to make sense.
Well, and I will say the one thing that has saved me in my career and given me the highest accuracy scores is when I go to type in a word, there's this little alarm that goes off sometimes, and I think to myself, is that what the right word is? Is that the right word? Is that the right spelling? And I'll try to convince myself, yes, it is. I know it's right. I don't have to look it up again. And if that little alarm goes off, I've learned to just say, the heck with it. I'm going to go look it up. I don't care if I looked it up 100 times. I'm going to look it up anyway. Or if I don't have it in my word expander, I'm going to go look it up. Because I just want to make sure that I put in the right word for the right context. So I do think, you know, doing due diligence that way, when we can't possibly memorize, you know, millions of words. So if you do have to stop and go look up the meaning, it's not a disgrace. It will just help you. And Indy's asking, Lisa said she prefers accents over no accent. Well, it is kind of ironic. Some people really, I think, do well with accents. Some people do horribly. Some people don't do well with female dictators, and some people do marvelously. So I think it has to do with how we hear. Maybe certain people hear different decibels, or maybe people hear better if it's a different diction or whatever. And
it's about your ear, you know.
It is.
Sometimes
it really
you have a really good ear for accents, and you can understand the English there with an accent. Others have to train their ear, and that will take a bit of time and more exposure to that dictator.
Exactly. And in the workplace, I think the saving grace there is you do have examples, and they are creatures of habit.
They sure are.
To always dictate the same stuff over and over, so that really helps you. And Indy's asking, do you see errors with punctuation with MTs that you folks hire?
We do all the time. Not everyone is up to speed with apostrophes. I would have to say that would be the biggest one. I will see this patient in 6 months' time.
That's a good one. Yeah.
That's a tricky one for some, you know. And while in training we're not here to give them an English grammar lesson, and there is heaps of help on Google and on different websites about those sorts of grammar. You know, examples that you would come across, but we do have a fantastic typist website, and we do have a big section on apostrophes. So basically everything that you will need to be successful is on our typist website, and you'll get exposure to that as soon as you apply to become an MT with us. You get exposure to that straight away. You can start reading through it. You can have a look. We've got little inscribed lessons in there. So that's something that your trainer will refer back to and says, you know, this is where you can find it. So, yes, but that would be the main thing, would be apostrophes, because it can make a bit of a difference, you know.
Right. And I don't think, it's not as horrendous as putting in a wrong drug or a wrong medical term.
Exactly.
But
yeah.
it makes us look stupid in a way, just because we don't know proper grammar. And so that, to me, it becomes a pride issue. And I used to, when I struggled with things like follow-up and follow-up, I had cheat sentences that I just put in, and I put them on a sticky, and I just kept them right there. And every time I got to that word, I asked myself, which one of these applies? And that is the only way that you can, I think, train yourself, just by making yourself stop every time, and
that's right.
reviewing that. So it would be the same as well as, your apostrophe situations. You just have to be aware of it. And if you know, especially, that it's going to be a weakness for you, you have to spend extra time researching it.
That's true, yes. And identifying that that's a weakness is really, really the biggest part of it, because then you know to be extra vigilant.
And that's it. If you were, using a tool to make a bookcase, you would have to make sure that you knew how to use everything in your toolbox. And some things might work better for you, and some things you might need a little bit more training on. So I think that's really important. And Tamer is asking, do you have a standard book or site of reference that your typist can refer to, similar to the book of style that we use?
No, we don't actually. We don't have any book or site of reference. Our typist website is really, I suppose, what you would call that instead of. It's sort of our Bible. It tells us about general punctuation, use of an apostrophe, hyphenating paragraphs, expanding contractions, rules for transcribing age, date format and body of report, heading format, sub-number, a bullet number list, marking blanks and guesses, specific rules for numbers. It just goes on and on, right up to researching techniques. So this would be what we call our default general rules.
Oh, that sounds
that
wonderful.
way that all of our typists are sending back work to our clients, all of the same standard, the same format, everything is the same.
Very good. And Lynn is asking, how does the time difference work in terms of turnaround time expected?
Yes. So when you will see your files, you will see when your file is due, and normally you're working, say, in a file that won't be due for another 24 hours. So it works really well. The time difference doesn't really matter.
Right, because even, here, it won't really affect anything. Those files come in at whatever time I sign on, because I work at 4:30 a.m. here in Pacific Standard Time. And whenever those files are created, they're still waiting in the pool for me. So all that matters in our case here in the company I work for, they're color coded, so I can tell which are the oldest, and we always do the oldest first, or stats. And
that's exactly right.
Yeah, as long as you start pulling those and they go back to the client, or if there is something that has to go to QA because there is something wrong with there was a question, a discrepancy, you couldn't find the patient. Those things are pended right to their pool, and as soon as they come in, then they're able to snatch it and do whatever they need to do to fix it and send it on. So it's kind of I always say, I have friends that don't believe me. They go, it can't be true. There aren't people dictating at all hours and all times of the day, and there's not work available 24/7, 365 days a year. And I just say, I'm really sorry to burst your bubble, but that's how it is. And sometimes people are on call, and they'll just use that time to catch up and dictate like 50 dictations, and all of a sudden,
that's right.
They're just
and we've got some. Yeah, we've got some dictators, and unfortunately they're probably not shouldn't do this, but they'll be you'll see them at a pedestrian crossing. I mean, you'll hear them. You'll hear the noises back, and they're dictating. They're dictating when they get in the lift to go to work. Exactly. They're dictating in the car at a red light. And that's all times of the day and night. They're dictating at home with the kids running around. And
the dog's barking.
Yeah. And we're like, right, okay, we just got to deal with this. Can I just say a quick hello to Sherry, who's interrupted her training this morning to listen to our webinar, and she's a current practicum student with us. So a big hello to Sherry.
Excellent, and great reviews. Excellent.
Thank you,
and
Sherry.
Lynn is asking, what are the minimal requirements to be a part-time transcriptionist?
We do ask at the moment that you do a minimum of around 20 hours or equivalent to 1,000 lines a week. So that's very basic. We have a lot of part-time transcriptionists because they want the flexibility, obviously, and some have another job as well, another part-time job, so they, juggling both. Others are, carers for sick family members and things like that, and they need the flexibility of only working part-time. So we are able to provide that, not a problem at all.
Excellent. And when you do lines, now, do you folks go by, in Australia, do you go by like a 65-character line?
We do. 65-character line, definitely.
Okay. And then do you include the spaces?
Yes, we do.
Cool. That's very good, because that's very similar to what we do in the U.S. And I know in Canada, although there are some that do not pay for the spaces, and that does end up being about a 20 to 25% pay cut.
Yes, it does work out to be a bit expensive.
It does.
We do have one client that tells you to copy and paste over all the diagnosis and medications list, and we love that because they're very long, and we copy and paste over, and we get paid for nothing.
Exactly.
Really great.
I know.
So that's a bit of a bonus with that client. Everyone loves those.
That's great.
Yeah.
And, in Canada, I believe most of the companies, they go by the line or the minute of dictation. But Deb has assured me, she said it ends up being pretty parallel, whether you're paid by the line or you're paid by the minute, because it has to be equitable. But I think, I've always been paid by the 65-character line. And
I think it's accurate too. I've just got a question here. What is the starting pay? So we will pay you 9 cents a line in training because we're working on active files. We don't work on practice files at all, so you're in there straight away starting to earn some money, and then when you go into a team, you get paid 10.5 cents a line, and then that will increase as you get your direct return clients on board.
That's awesome.
So we are comparable to other medical transcriptionists in the industry. So our senior transcriptionists will be paid up to 14 cents a line, definitely.
Wow. And do you do, as I recall, you do all straight typing? Is that right?
We do, yes.
Okay.
At the moment, we don't have any voice recognition files for our typists. It may be something we'll look into in the future as Australia gets on board with that, but at the moment our doctors don't feel that it is accurate enough for them to use. And it is up to the doctors, individual doctors, what they want to do. But and if that happens, we would have a separate department just for that. So our straight typing is always going to be front and foremost, definitely.
That's great. And I do, just from my own experience over the years, they, in quotes, whoever they are, say that it's 10 times harder to edit files. And it wouldn't seem logical, but it really is, simply because it requires so much thinking to read and interpret and listen and not drift off. It is, at least to me, I've always said, at least 5 to 6 times harder than if I just typed the bloody file from the beginning. It would be easier. So it is, I think it is a lot of mental work. Um, Amanda's asking, if you choose to work part-time, can you still work more hours above the minimum requirement? I would imagine, yes. Yeah.
Yes. There is no cap on how many hours you can work. We just ask for a minimum of, for instance, 20 hours, and you can break that up into over 7 days of the week, morning, afternoon, night, however you want to manage your day. And all you need to do is give an indication of what your rostered hours would be of a week, so your group leader would then know when to expect you to come online, so they know who's working and who's not. But yes, there is. I have a status on my Skype that says work status hyphen busy. Whenever you see that busy, you know that you can work extra hours on top of what you have said to your group leader. Not a problem at all. When it's quiet, we need you to stick to your rostered hours so we have enough work then to share, and that would be only ever over, say, Christmas Day period, when obviously the doctors aren't working.
Right.
But that's only for a few days and then it picks up again. So we're never really in that quiet mode.
That's great. That's awesome. And what platform do you folks use?
Well, Inscribe. We use our Inscribe platform, which is now, I think, eScription 1. They've had a brand change from MDAT to eScription 1. So we use Inscribe, and we will teach you in training how to navigate that platform and share screens with you. We do like to Skype call a lot. We know that this is an isolating type of job. When you're working from home, you don't have that banter at the water cooler when you go and get your coffee, which a lot of people miss. So we do like to, engage people in a Skype call, how are you, and share a joke and things like that, to make it more human, and the fact that there is someone on the other end there. You are working with people even though you can't see them. So we do really try to make that as work friendly as possible.
That's really good. Now, let me back up. I got a whole bunch of questions. Sorry.
Sure.
Brain flipped. Carolyn was asking, if you're successful in your practicum with you folks, would it be safe to say there would be a job waiting?
Yes, you get an offer of a placement straight away before you go back to do your final exams.
Oh, wonderful. And Indy's very reassured because she was worried about how much work would be available. I could say just in the U.S., the companies I work for or have worked for, there's always work available. Sometimes more than others around a holiday. The holiday might be super busy, and then the day after will be very quiet, but it all kind of depends. But honestly, I've never had a lack of work. Quite the opposite. Exactly. It always seems like people are asking me, can you do more hours because
yes, exactly. Because we've got doctors that download so many files at once, hundreds of files, and it's so busy sometimes, you just don't know where to start, so anyone that can do extra hours, is always very welcome.
And I just think, to be honest, in the world, the whole world, if we kind of worked that way, I think there would be a better work ethic. Medical transcription is based on what you do, you get paid for. And so there isn't a lot of time to fool around, to be dishonest, to not do your job, to talk on the phone, to, do whatever, play games. So I do kind of think it does keep you honest. And you have to be very self-disciplined, obviously.
You do, yes.
That couldn't handle it, but,
No, that's true, and I have got friends that would not be able to have that discipline. They would be too distracted because there is no office situation where someone's looking at you working and keeping an eye on you. So it does take a bit of self-discipline, but I find that I think everyone, or at NTS anyway, wants that connection. They will hop online, say hello to their group leader, share a bit of hey, how's your day going type of thing before they hop into work. And I think sometimes the connection like that you have before then you hop into work, knowing that someone is there all the time, just waiting to answer a question, you feel that you're not really alone and you can get on and do your job because you want to be part of that community that we have.
I think so too. I think that's great. And you are on your own, and I really like that. I like the confidence that it's always given me that, hey, I'm fine. I'm on here working. And if I do need help, I can get it. But I am completely capable of doing my job, and I love that.
Exactly, yeah. And, we try to encourage you to be independent contractors because that's, the nature of this industry.
Right.
And not sort of reliant on other people to get your work done, So we do try and, direct you to where you'll find your answer rather than giving you a quick answer.
Right.
And sometimes you need a quick answer, but a lot of the time, if we can tell you where to go to find that, that's a skill then you'll remember for next time. And it just, it just reinforces the fact that you can do this and you can do this without help,
Right. And I think that a lot of students don't quite understand that, but we do that at CanScribe. And we're really not supposed to give answers. That is the whole point.
Yeah, that's right.
So much of the skill set of the MTHDS is researching. That is the top skill that you have to have. I don't know what this is, and how do I find it?
Researching techniques is one of the, I think with proof checking and researching techniques, having those two down pat is the secret of a successful MT.
It is.
Those two things go hand in hand.
Yeah, I think
so. In our experience, there are two qualities that are found consistently in those transcriptionists who really make this type of business succeed, is the ability to research and the ability to accept and implement feedback on your files. A lot of the research techniques use the internet. They're quick and they're very effective. If you take the time to learn what your files mean, you will make a long-term career as an MT. Two sites that I would recommend that you should load every single day before you begin is google.com.au, so you're getting the Australian version, and also onelook.com. They're the two ones that we thoroughly recommend. Google is so advanced now that you can be halfway through typing in your team and it will make advanced suggestions for you. So if you type in your term, you type in a phrase, it will correct that for you and give you the right phrase. So rather than typing in the word that you don't understand, put in the words around it and you will get your answer straight away.
That's exactly what I do. And the funny thing is, it's just amazing because it will take that, like you said, it's advanced thinking. How does it know this stuff? It's just crazy. But it can take my gobbledygook and say, no, is this what you meant?
Exactly. And you go, oh, of course. Yes, it is.
Of course. I knew that. Yes.
Yes, that's right. It's also a great tool for checking an address, too. Simply copy and paste the street address with the suburb into Google, and if there's a spelling error, it will show you straight away the correct spelling. That's really good when you're doing patient demographics with us, which is what we do. We have to enter patient details and then the addressee details. So that's something that we work with patient and associate databases. So you'll learn that in training. So being able to research the correct street names and things like that is also a skill that we would need you to have. Which
and it will even help you find correct doctor spellings, and that's
definitely. I do that. If I know the suburb of the doctor and the doctor's name, bang, into Google it goes. It shows me exactly where he is.
Right. And they're very sensitive about you spelling their name right. So
they are. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Lynn was asking back up there a bit about...
Yes, would we dock any pay for mistakes? No, we have never done that. It's not our practice at all. You you will be on your line count rate regardless of the quality of work that you send back. So if in QA we're seeing a lot of mistakes, we would then be educating you on how to avoid those, because this is our opportunity then to mentor you and work with you to overcome that. It might be a difficult dictator that mumbles, that it's just too difficult. We would work with you, we would give you tips and hints about how to deal with this one. But your line count rate, your invoicing rate all stays the same. That's just not how we operate, and we would never do that.
Yeah, and I do know some large companies that I won't mention their names, but they have been known to decrease people's pay.
It's very harsh when all it needs is a bit of education sometimes.
Right, right. But most people really in the industry, I had my own business and I employed, up to 30 people at one time. The last thing you want to do is retrain people. So you want to just train the people that you have to work smarter, to work better. And everybody is there to help you. And if you do open yourself up to the feedback and you do show progress, nobody's ever going to want to get rid of you.
No, exactly right.
So if we can learn from our mistakes, I would love you to touch on the subject of productivity, though, with in terms of using word expanders. I promote that a lot, just because
we do encourage that. Can I say, when I was typing, I never used one word expander. I was a bit afraid of them at the beginning. If I was a typist now, I would definitely have one on board. I was encouraged to use InScribe's auto text as a good way of starting off. If you haven't used a word expander before, using auto text, it has a finite library of what you could, how many words you can put in there. But once you've sort of exhausted that, you really need to look at a third-party expander. And ITP, yes, definitely is one that most of our transcriptions use on a daily basis, and it has increased their productivity, increased their line count really dramatically. So that's something that we would thoroughly recommend. But yes, in the old days, as I say, about 7 years ago now, I had my little handy-dandy notebook, and I wrote down those words and referred to those. So when I look back and think how much extra I could have been earning if I'd used a text expander, I can see the benefits definitely now that I'm a bit wiser.
Well, and just from my perspective, the older that I've gotten, and I have had just fleeting bouts, because I always took care of it right away, with tendon issues. And it was because I just, I would type like 4,000 lines in a day. And you just can't keep doing that, on infinitum. You can't. And so finally, when I went back and I got into a company that had a lot of straight typing, I was like, oh no, I'm never going to be able to make my line counts. So that saved my life. I was like, oh my gosh, I can totally do this. And I was way above my requirements. So, that's just my personal testimony. And it does help you be more accurate, because in my case, once I hear a new drug, I look it up immediately, and I put it in there as a generic or a brand name, and I never have to look it up again then. So
that's right. And then you never have to type it again either, because your brand versus generic names, when you need to have a capital letter for your brand name, you can put all of that in your text expander. And whereas I had to remember that all the time when I was doing it. So that extra time you took to confirm, your guesses and things like that, it's a time waster when you want to, get your speed up, you want to get your proficiency, and you want to earn as much income as you can. Those things just take too much time.
Right, and if you've looked something up once, that should be enough.
Yes,
so that's my rule. It's like, if I looked it up twice, now I'm mad at myself because I didn't put it in there. And I think, well, you just wasted 5 more minutes by having to go back and find it again. So.
Exactly. Yes.
And
That's
Amanda
right.
is asking if if MTs get different types of patients, or do they tend to stay in their lane, so to speak, and do specific fields?
Well, okay. We have 5 teams, and they're broken up into all different specialties. So, for instance, Team 1 would look after ENT, Gen Surge, Immunology, Neurology, Pain Rehab, Ophthalmology, Orthopedics, and Urology. So, if you were going to go into Team 1, you would have 2 specialties. You would have a primary specialty, and then you would have a secondary specialty. So when you run out of your primary specialty, you have your secondary specialty to get on with. So, for instance, if I was setting someone up in Team 1, I might give them Gen Surge and then Pain Rehab. So you'd only get 2 specialties out of all of those that Team 1 offer. Team 2 do dermatology, peds, plastics, respiratory and sleep medicine. Team 3 are in charge of cardio, gastro, hepatology and medico-legal. Team 4 are endocrinology, gen med, geriatrics, gynae and obs, infectious diseases, psych, as in mental health, renal, rheumatology and vascular. So they have 9 specialties in their team. And then Team 5 just have oncology, palliative care and haematology. So that's how we break up our specialties. Especially when we get a big hospital with all those specialties, we break them up into teams. Everyone has only 2 specialties in their team, in their pool, that they would work on at any one time. I'll just answer that last question there. How would we determine an MT specialty? We would look at their strengths and weaknesses in training. So we would trial an MT on various specialties in learning, the different dictators and different client rules and things like that we need to follow for that client. We would be in the background assessing, where would we put this lady? Look, she's really good at immunology. So we would then say, do you have a preference for any specialty? What's your favourite? What would you like to do? And then we take that into account and also look at their strengths and see where they would be best fitted. So it's sort of a mutual decision with the trainee and us as to where they go. And yes, we do a lot of op reports. Gen Surge and gastro and cardio would be the main ones that would have op reports. Oh, and of course, some in oncology, but not really, because mainly it's chemotherapy, so it's drug trials and things like that. But the other ones, yeah, would be where, the specialties that would be having to operate, surgeons involved, like plastics, for instance, would be very common. Yes, we are a 16-hour difference. Different time zones. We have people available all the time. We have an overnight group leader. We have trainers that we have 2 trainers, Bonnie and Libby. Bonnie is an ex-CAN scribe graduate. She's one of our trainers, so she's in Canada. We have another lady that's in Ohio in the USA, and they take care of our Canadian and USA applicants that are in training. And then we have our local people. So if you, for instance, would like to train of a night time in your local time, well, then that would be our daytime, and then you would get one of our local trainers. So we're able to work with the time difference very well. The training is anywhere between 2 and 4 weeks, depending on how quickly you get through what we need to teach. So that's but roughly 2 to 4 weeks, definitely. And if we need to extend that, we can by a week or so, if we can see that that's all you would need to get on board. So we don't sort of go, after 4 weeks, that's it, you didn't pass or anything like that. It's a case-by-case situation. And I think we have one lady that's going back to do her final exams now, but we're going to keep her for 1 more week when she comes back to us, because we just want to work some fine-tune some things with her that she will need to do and sort of accomplish before then we will set her up in a team. So it's not that, you know, she didn't pass her practicum or anything like that. That's not how we operate. No, you don't have to work at 3 a.m. Yay! Unless you love it and you want to. So everyone is only expected to work in their local times, definitely. Now, have I missed any other questions, Audrey?
Sorry, I ended up going into a coughing fit, so I muted.
Oh, that's okay.
Sorry.
Yes. No.
I know Indy was asking about the turnaround time on the typing files, but I think, as we said, they're
normally they're 24 hours. We do
okay.
have a contractual agreement with our clients for a 24-hour turnaround time. So our group leaders will manage those times in their teams. So if we see a file that's going to go overdue in 2 hours, we would then make sure that we've got someone onto that straight away. So that's the group leader's job, to manage turnaround times. But your pools are normally set up to the one that's due the first is the one that gets typed the first. So if we follow that, all our files will get returned on time.
Okay. And
the MDA, yeah, Sherry was just mentioning that. No, it's not necessary to use Medical Directory of Australia. I know you have to pay to use it. We found that Google is more than sufficient. Statements online, look, these are all personal things, but if you want to, you can. I've managed quite well without using any paid resources. We have PBS Online, which is our drug site that we use, pbs.gov.au, and that tells us all of our drugs, whether they're generic or brand name. So I think it's just a matter of, look, I found a website the other day too, which I'll mention, and it is called, and you probably may be aware of this already, it's called mondofacto.com, and that is a medical dictionary, and I have tried putting in quite a lot of terms, like sleep apnea, and it comes up with the Australian spelling for apnea, and then underneath it will give you the American spelling. So this is very good for our overseas girls to be able to distinguish the your own spelling to the Australian way, and putting in the Australian spelling into your text expander, and that helps so much with those words that we all have that different, just slightly different spelling.
Good.
Yes, that's right. We do. Our list of resources on our typist website as well, and our trainers will share that with you as well. And anything personally they've found, they will share with you as well.
That's great.
Medical jargon that's specific to Australia. There's not anything that's specific to Australia, basically. We're British Australian in terms of our dictionary, so in terms of our spelling, everything would be the same as what you would be doing in the UK. But no, everything's the same. Absolutely everything. The same terms in terms of operations, in terms of anatomy, all of that sort of thing. There is no specific medical jargon that I would say that it would be specific to Australia. No. So that makes it a lot easier. We call everything the same, which is great.
Good ones. Good, Lisa. I think, did we miss a question?
Just go back.
Oh, there you go. Good one. Mondo Facto. Okay. Okay. I think we covered all the questions.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Drug names in the US, Australia versus US. you'll be pleased to know that we're changing over to the American way of spelling our drugs. So it's as the Australian doctors have 5 years to change over to the American way of spelling. So we're instituting that in our company straight away,
Wow.
and educating our Australian typists that this is what this is how we spell things these days. So that is good news, yes.
And it is strange that I've found, you know, even on drugs.com, it will say that something has been discontinued, but then you'll do a report the very next day and they're prescribing it. So I think there are certain things that you just have to keep in mind. If in doubt, of course, ask somebody. But the other thing, in the U.S. anyway, they will discontinue a drug and then turn right around and remarket it under a different name, but it's really the same drug.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
It is just kind of a, what do you want to call it, a merry-go-round. It's just things come around and go around again.
That's right.
Yeah.
And look, you can still use Google to find your drugs, you know. That's really, especially with drug trials, Google is probably the best one to search for your drug trials.
Exactly.
The quickest, yes.
Yeah, because you can be going all around trying to figure it out.
Oh, you can, yes, that's right. Let alone try and spell some of them, you know.
Yeah, instruments, catheters. I do a lot of cardiac, and
some of
the names are so, you know, you could look forever in standard references, but they're so new that they would never be in those. So
that's exactly right.
Yeah, by Googling, you can come up with all these crazy names that are, you know, tall man letters and all that kind of stuff. So
that's right, Audrey.
Google is your friend.
Google is your friend, yes. It's fantastic.
Use it wisely. And the thing is, even if you type in a generic drug, it will immediately tell you what the brand names are and vice versa.
Exactly.
So I think it's just a great tool. And back to the word expanders as well, I have recommended a lot of students to just read through those entries, the ones that, you know, like instant text that come with dictionaries, because you might not have been exposed to those phrases, those, you know, gobbledygooks of words. And just by, you know, seeing and associating, you know, the first letter of each word with that, it teaches you something. So I kind of always think that a word expander is a good tool to build up your vocabulary of phrases. But
that's right. And you can just start slowly. We also recommend with text expanders too that if you look at, on our system, if you look at any prior transcriptions, you know, in the client, you know, that you're working on at the moment, and you pick up some of those words, you know, from prior transcriptions and add those to text expanders, because you know you're going to be seeing these every day, and that's a quick way of building up a little bit of a bank straight away.
Exactly.
And even you can do that on the weekend when you're not working, you know, so you're not interfering with your working time, and just keep adding to that.
And it's all back to research. It really is. Just because, I mean, individually researching the person that you're typing for, you will be surprised how much more accurate you become. You never make those mistakes for, you know, did he say this or did he say that? And then you save time by not having to type it. So
that's right, yes.
Perfect, yes. But thank you all for coming. Let me double check and see if there are any more questions. Great. That was a wonderful session, you guys. Thank you for all your wonderful questions. And Catherine, thank you, as usual, for coming on and being so enthusiastic.
Thank you, everybody. I'm hoping I've given you a bit of a taste of what it's like to work for NTS, and we would love to see you on board as soon as you've graduated. Please do think of us for your practicum as well. It's we love to have our practicum students, and we love working with you all, so please do put your hand up if you'd like to do your practicum with us, definitely.
Excellent. And you all will be able to view this if you'd like. Again, it will be posted up. All right. Well, thank you all, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.